Hi everybody, this is the Nixtracker Do-It-Yourself Kit assembly video, and I'm going to follow the instructions that come with the Nixtracker in the mail, okay? So when it comes in the mail, on the top you should see a user manual, and then you'll see the instructions. And as I said, I'm going to follow these step by step. What you'll see when you unpack the tracker is you'll see a number of components. These are all listed on the first page of the assembly instructions. And we will go over all these components very briefly before we dive into the assembly. Okay? Right here you have a top wood piece with one part already put into it. Then over here you have the bottom wood piece with 3 parts already put into it. We'll go into more detail on that later. You have a motor, you have a driving rod, as well as a large threaded gear, and then you have a battery pack. Okay? When we open up the bag, what we're going to find are a number of smaller items. Careful not to lose any of them. You have a hinge right here. Then you have a compartment lid. You have a spring, a stowage clip and a spring hook. You have a spring, you have a number of number 2 fasteners, number 4 fasteners, number 6 fasteners, and you have a washer for a number 4 fastener. You have a button head screw, and you have a self-tapping nut. That should be everything that you have. Okay? In order to assemble the Nixtracker, all you need is a screwdriver and 2 Allen wrenches. You don't have to have a screwdriver like this. A normal one at home is just fine, but a fine tip typically works better than a broad tip. The other 2 things, as I said, are Allen keys. You need a 4mm and a 5mm. Again, you don't have to have this kind. Any kind of Allen key will work. Alright, so these instructions are divided into 2 sub-assembly instructions, if you will, and the first one is the top assembly, the second is the bottom assembly. The top assembly is easier and quicker, so we start with that one. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a 1/4 20 button head screw and screw it all the way in till it hits the bottom. Keep it nice and tight, okay? Don't over tighten these things. Remember that we're screwing into wood. Alright, the next step, number 2, is we're going to put the hinge on using number 6 screws. Okay, that's my torque settings too low. I'm going to bump it up all the way to 15. Okay. You can use quite a lot of torque putting these guys in, but again, you've got to feel it out. Okay, excellent. Step number 3, you want to take a little bit of time to do this right. I'm going to go quick, but this is because I've built hundreds of these, literally. So, what you want to do is you want to make sure that this self-tapping nut stays straight to the piece of wood as you screw it in. Especially as you're starting, apply quite a bit of pressure to keep it tapping itself. Okay, but once it gets going, it'll go itself. So just keep it straight. All right. Okay, that's where your driving rod will screw into later. Okay, step number 4, we're going to take the stowage clip, we're going to put it into its little housing slot here. Going to bring our torque setting quite a bit of ways down. Again, be mindful we're screwing into wood here, so especially with these smaller fasteners, it will strip the wood easily if you over tighten. At this point I have a pretty good feel for it, but as you're going, go slow. Okay, step number 5, we're going to fasten the spring hook into place. Similar idea, similar fastener, number 4. When I do this, I usually hold it against the housing right there. Okay. Step number 6 is that the top piece is now complete. Okay. So let's set that aside and let's go to the bottom assembly. Now, what you'll see with the bottom assembly is a laser module that is connected to the control board. Okay. The laser module is glued in. You don't need to do anything with the laser module. You'll notice that there are some adjustment screws, but those are factory set, and I would advise against touching them. Okay. One thing is that in the kit, you will have to screw in the other two number 2 screws in the corners of the board, right here and right here. Now when I'm screwing with these screws, I really should be on a torque setting of 1. Go very light with those. They're small, so they'll strip the wood pretty quick. Alright, moving on to step number 8. Now this is one that you should pay attention to because it makes a difference in how well your driving rod and motor operate. Okay? What we're going to do is we're going to insert the motor right here, and on the left ear, higher torque setting, we screw it into the wood. Okay, that's not high enough. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to put the large gear in the hole in the housing and seat it where it's going to seat in operation. Okay, now we want to make sure that it's not too close to the large gear or too far away. You want engagement, but you don't want binding. Okay, so you got to find the happy medium. The vast majority of trackers that I build, it's the center hole as designed. Okay, that's the nominal. Alright, so that looks good. We now remove the large gear. We go on to step number 9. Step number 9, we are going to twist the wire like this so that it folds itself into the top wood piece. Then we're going to wrap a couple of loops and we're going to connect the red wire right here on the left side of the control board. Again, the red wire connects to the left side of the control board. Alright, going on now to step 10. We connect the battery pack, first by connecting it to its connector on the control board, and then by holding down all these wires that are already here and wrapping the battery pack wires a couple of times, maybe just once, around the mounting post. Now, when you're at this step, make sure that the wires are not caught between the battery pack and the board, and that the battery pack is sitting, between the battery pack and the wood, and make sure that the battery pack is sitting flush. Okay? So, take number 4 fasteners. Once again, these guys are the workhorses of the assembly. And we fasten into the 2 battery pack mounting holes. Alright, that finishes step 10. Step number 11 is when we place the spring onto the board. What we do is we take a number 4 fastener like this, we put a number 4 washer onto it, and then we put one side of the spring through it. Okay, now we take this and we place it into this hole right here. And you gotta have better hands than I do right now. But right there, into that hole, and slowly fasten down until it starts biting. You don't need to have this one super tight, you just need it there to keep the spring in place. Okay? Alright. Moving on to step 12 is the final step in the bottom assembly, and that's when we put the lid on the compartment. Okay. Now you might have to push the wires down that power the laser, but that should be fine. All right. Again, be really delicate on this. Low torque. Don't want to strip that wood. And wood is generally pretty good at biting fasteners. Like they don't walk out all that often if they're not being loaded a lot and they're not being exposed to extreme weather. So these will hold in place just fine with a little bit of torque. You don't need to go crazy. Okay. Oh, okay, sorry about that. I realized now you couldn't see any of that. There you go, you got the fasteners 1, 2, and 3. This one needs a little bit more. And this one does too. Okay, bottom piece is now complete. Alright, the last part is final assembly. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to connect the bottom and the top assemblies, okay? With the same number 6 fasteners that we used before. Put my torque all the way up. Alright. Okay. Alright, next is step number 15. What we're going to do is we're going to take the large threaded gear and we're going to screw it back onto the threaded rod here. Okay, we're going to put it about 3/4 of the way down, and then we're going to screw it into the top piece. And what we'll do next is make sure that the rod's bend fits your particular tracker. Every unit needs a little bit of adjustment just to get it close. Okay, so what we're looking at first is we want to make sure that the driving rod lines up with the hole. Okay, now in this version, or in this kit, you can see that the rod is a little bit high. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to firmly but carefully either bend it down or bend it back up depending on what is needed. Okay, in this instance we're bending down a little bit. So I brace my thumb here, apply a little bit of pressure, and it still has a very nice even bend to it. Okay, and now we try again. Okay, now it's going straight into the hole, just like it should. Okay, we want to check the range of motion, make sure that it fits level and parallel. See, we want that large gear to be parallel to the wood throughout the entire range of motion. So I'm going to check it at the end, I'm going to check it in the middle. Okay, still very level. And I'm going to check it closer to the top. And still looking good. Okay, done with step 15. We now go on to step 16, where we just simply stow it for use later. Okay, we're going to put the large threaded gear in the middle of the driving rod, place the driving rod in the slot, snap it into the stowage clip in the top, lay the rod down, and we are finished. Okay, now if you bought the kit with a ball head as well, then now's the time to screw it on. And we're done. Okay, all you need now is a decent camera and a decent tripod, and you can take some pretty awesome pictures with this little guy. Okay guys, always check out the tips and tutorial page of the website. There's a lot of good info on there. And if you ever have any trouble, feel free to contact me directly. Okay, thank you.